So the portion about self-knowledge is where we had stopped yesterday, and we find that in the second chapter, Bhagavan gives different types of reasoning, and from all standpoints, the conclusion that is arrived at is that Arjuna should do his duty and he should fight the war. So from the highest spiritual standpoint, the self is immortal. So Arjuna does not have to worry about the soul perishing. Then we also saw about reincarnation. That even from the standpoint as an individual, as a jiva, only the body is dropped. The karma continues in the next body. So the individual does not cease to exist. Now the psychological factors Bhagavan will explain. So we see verse number...
So I have a question. When you say the body, it's like clothes and you drop the body and the soul takes up a new body depending on your karma. So your lifespan in this life is dependent on the karma of the previous life.
Yes.
What about the karma that you've done in this life? You don't pay for it in this life.
You get some results you get here also. Only those karmas for which you don't get results now, those get carried forward. Many karmas you get the results now also. Immediate also you get. Only those which don't give us results now. Maybe they give even in some years. It's not necessary that every karma which doesn't give result now will be carried forward to next life. At the end of life, whichever karmas which have not given result, they get carried forward. So till this life, in this present life, present actions, present choices that I am making, that freedom I have. It is not that 100% everything of my life is determined only by my past action. As a human being, I have a freedom to do karma, to respond in whichever way I want. That determines my future. So that is how it is. So this life, when I am doing new set of karmas, now it's difficult to know which is new and which is past. So that we need not know, but with our best intentions, when I make a choice, that's what has to be done. That's the exercise of free will or the purushartha that I have in this moment. Whichever karma is left out, which has not given result, at the end of it, that is called as agami karma. So that is added on to the total bundle of karma, which we call as sanchit karma. And from that, whatever is ready to give me result, to exhaust that, I take a body. So that is called as a prarabdha karma or fate, what we call it, which is not written by some god up there, but by our own past action. So whole life of ours is not predetermined by past karma. Span of life is predetermined. And even that can be changed. That requires a lot of effort. So you have examples of people who have done that. It just goes to show that your life is in your hands, your control. So few examples are there. Even Shankaracharya himself, Markandeya, and so many others who have extended their lifespan. Right. So now we come to verse number 31, where he brings in a concept of swadharma. It's a very important concept of the Gita. Swadharmamapi chavekshya na vikampitum arhasi dharmyadhiyuddhat shreyomyat kshatriyasya na vidyate. So he says here that from standpoint of swadharma also, swadharmam apicha avekshya. Looking at it from the standpoint of swadharma. Swadharma means the natural temperament of the individual. A certain mental temperament because of which one is inclined to specific types of work. That is called as Swadharma. So if my mental temperament is more of maybe creative thinking, research, quiet moments of contemplation, very logical, then I choose such fields where I can express that temperament through a particular field, maybe through whatever, creative writing or drama or poetry or stories or anything, blog writing, whatever it is. If I have a temperament that I am able to work with people, I am able to lead them, and I am able to form good teams and have leadership capacities, then I choose accordingly some particular field. So each person has a certain temperament, a certain natural temperament, and then based on that temperament one should choose the field in which one will express that very spontaneously. Then work becomes a joy for that person because it is in line with the temperament. When the work is not in line with my temperament, then that work will create more, it will be labor, it will be burden. One feels I have to drag through it, I don't like it, somehow I do it. But when I enjoy what I do, because I am made for that, that comes to me very naturally, then that work becomes a joy. So for Arjun, that Swadharma is that he has those qualities to fight, to protect, to be a leader, to keep people together, to stand for a cause. All that is his temperament. So he says, looking at your temperament, you should not even waver, you should not have any doubts in your mind. Na vikampitum arhasi. Meaning you don't have that temperament of withdrawing quietly, staying in a forest, living a life of contemplation, because you are very dynamic, very active, and you are not yet ready for that type of a life. So he says that you should not even think twice. This field which you have got is the appropriate field where you can exhaust your natural temperament. If you run away from here, not only you will not exhaust your natural tendencies, you will create suppression, but you will go to the new environment and cultivate more karma there. Because existing vasana you don't exhaust, new ones you create, then there is a suffocation. So the point is that each one of us, if we act in tune with our Swadharma, not only that work will give us joy, but it will also help us to exhaust our karma. Plus, it will be the best for us to serve the society also. So that Swadharma, basis of anybody choosing a profession or any field, should be Swadharma. Should not be external influences, peer pressure, parent pressure, social pressure. When coming under those influences one chooses anything, maybe for some time one may even manage to do well. But very soon, that inner calling which is not there, then work will become pressurized. But when I follow that inner call and work according to that, this is what I am made for, let I do it. That work itself will bring a lot of joy. Result, reward, etc. is a bonus. One doesn't work for that. For an artist to paint itself is the joy. For a musician to sing or to play the instrument is a joy. Same way, for a businessman to do business is joy. One doesn't even bother about, risk is there and what will happen. That's a joy. That person's temperament is that. So, person who has a temperament, each one of us think that what is my temperament, what am I made for, am I in the right field? These few things are important. To be in the right field, at the right time, doing the right work, with the right attitude, for the right cause. These 5 things are important. Right field, doing the right work, at the right time, with the right attitude, for the right cause. In Arjun's case, what is missing? Is only the attitude. Right attitude he does not have right now. He is in the right field at the right time, doing the right work. He has to protect dharma. The cause is also very noble. That's why he says dharmyadhi yuddhat shreyonyat. Even Duryodhana is a Kshatriya, but he is fighting from the side of adharma. So Bhagavan says that you are so fortunate that not only you are able to exhaust your tendencies, but you are on the right side of dharma. So what is there for you to even think about twice? So Arjun, you should just quietly do it. So when a person aligns these five, that person will not only succeed but will be happy, and work itself will be the joy for that person. Person does not have to struggle through work, does not have to, each day drag oneself through it. Otherwise one waits when the weekend will come. Then I will be free. I will enjoy. And again Monday morning, oh God, again I have to go to the work. So it becomes boring. But if one is doing what one is made for, what is very enjoyable to one. You must have heard this, I don't know if you have. If you want happiness for an hour, take a nap. If you want happiness for a day, go for fishing. If you want happiness for a week, go out of town. If you want happiness for a month, get married. If you want happiness for a year, inherit wealth. But if you want happiness forever, then do what you love and love what you do. If you do what you really love, what you are made for, that's your temperament. And also love what you do. Many people don't love what they do. They feel, "Arey, kya hai? I just did it." They don't love what they do. So that work itself doesn't give them that joy. Then one depends on the result. So Bhagavan says that your swadharma is this. You are a Kshatriya not by birth, by your temperament you are a Kshatriya. And if you drop all this, the problem with swadharma is this, that suppose I have my swadharma and I don't focus on that. I quit, I go somewhere else. It will be miserable. I will have a lot of psychological pressure. My mind will keep going towards that swadharma. So many people are forced to take up doctor, engineer, IT, but their temperament lies in something else. They have to keep on pulling themselves back. They don't like it. For some reason they have taken this and they struggle through it. Many of them who are engineering students, they tell us that under some peer pressure and some delusion they just took it. Because many people think that way, that the most brilliant people will take science. Mediocre people will take commerce. And the dull people will take arts. It's a completely wrong notion. But many times when one is a student, one wants to fit into the top category. And all friends are taking, so I also take. So one doesn't do. Today there are a lot of psychological tests which are available. It is very strange. After you do all the tests, they will tell you are good in this also, you are good in that also, you are good in that also, you can take whatever you want. Then why did I do the test? As though that I didn't know. One specific thing has to be told. This is what is your predominant temperament. You take this. This will be better for you. And it is true also that sometimes the swadharma is not absolutely clear to a person. Then one has to ask oneself a few questions and sit and think. One of the things which one can do is from birth to 5 years, what are the things that you love the most? From 6 years to 10 years, from 11 to 15, from 16 to 20. Write down, just write down at those age, at that age period, what was the thing that you liked the most? That's one of the ways to find out, because there will be one common thread which will be there. If I don't have to work for money, what will I do? What is that field in which I will be able to give my best and where the work will be deeply satisfying to me? Where I don't mind, which can make me lose myself in it, where I forget myself in it. What is that which I can do for my whole life? So many such questions are there, which one can ask oneself and then come to that point where, okay, this is my Swadharma. So Swadharma, determination, is one of the very important aspects, not only for satisfaction in one's life, but also for spiritual growth. Because if I act according to my Swadharma, I can exhaust all those tendencies and that person will become very quiet, the mind will become quiet. On the contrary, when I don't follow my Swadharma, mind will be disturbed, agitated, there will be disinterest, there will be a lot of resistance from inside. Every day one is struggling, one doesn't want to face life enthusiastically. That is not good for the spiritual growth. A mind which is in conflict that way cannot sit quietly in meditation, cannot go deep within, will always be non-accepting of what life is bringing. Hence, this concept of Swadharma, very important even for spiritual growth, not just for success in the world outside or satisfaction in the job. So he says, now having given that Swadharma argument, he says that you are very fortunate that you have this kind of a cause and you are on the right side. Just you have to change your attitude. So don't even think twice. And then he says that if you don't follow that, in the 33rd verse, he says, if you don't follow your Swadharma and you quit, he says, asachetomimam dharmam sangramam na karishyasi. If you don't fight and you quit, tata swadharmam kirtim cha hitva papam avapsasi. Then not only you will go away from Swadharma, but you will also get bad name. That Arjun quit midway and he did not support his brothers, he was a coward. And for a Kshatriya, that is a very, what can we say, insulting. It is insulting for a Kshatriya. Because honor is the most important for a Kshatriya. One even fights and one lays down one's life for the sake of honor. It says you will drop honor, you will lose reputation, you will get all bad name if you drop this Swadharma. And hence he says, he puts a little more pressure on Arjun, saying that it is better to die than to get such a bad name. For a Kshatriya, that is the worst thing that can happen. That when you quit before the war, you get a bad name. So in 34th he says, not only you will get bad name, akirtim chapi bhutani kathaishyanti te gayam. They will continuously talk, people will talk bad about you. And such a reputation, bad reputation that you have, is worse than even death for a Kshatriya. They will think you are a coward. Bhayadrana duparanta. They will think that that greatest warrior Arjun suddenly collapsed and he just quit. And so they will talk very cheaply about you, O Arjun. So don't even think about quitting. So now this is the psychological argument that Bhagavan has put in front of him. Then he says in 37th verse, he says, either ways you have nothing to lose. Hatova prapsasi swargam. If you are killed in the war, you will attain heaven. Because one is you are on the righteous side. Second is, you die valorously in a war, the warrior gets what they call as Veer Swarga. You enjoy in a particular realm of experience called as Veer Swarga, where all the great warriors go. So he says, if you die, you will get that. Jitvava bhokshase mahim. And if you win, you will enjoy the earth. So even from commerce standpoint, you have nothing to lose. If you fight, you have nothing to lose. And if you don't fight, you have everything to lose. And so Arjun, tasmad uttishta kaunteya yuddhaya krita nishchaya. Hence, arise, O Arjun, and do your duty. Don't escape from the duty. Here is the context of war. In our context, it is duty. When a person does their duty, person is able to be light-hearted, and there is nothing to lose in that. But when I don't do the duty, there is a pressure that I know I should have done this, but I did not do this, and I succumb to some other pressure, maybe some temptation, some enjoyment, some carelessness, which is not good. And when I don't do that duty, that will create a bad name also. As a student, I don't study. As a householder, I don't take care of my family. All those duties which are there, when I don't do, that gives bad name. So now this is one argument about Swadharma and about the psychological pressure. Now comes a very nice verse where Bhagavan says that you fight for the sake of fighting. Don't keep anything else in the mind. 38th one. Sukha dukhe same kritva labha labhau jaya jayau tato yuddhaya yujyasva naivam papam avapsyasi. So he says, Sukha dukhe samay kritva. Happiness and sorrow, make them equal. Labha alabha, gain and loss. Success and failure, jaya ajaya. Meaning, don't depend on the results. You fight for the sake of fighting. Yuddhaya yujyasva. Naivam papam avapsyasi. You will not incur any sin. So even from morality standpoint, he says, even if you are killing these people, you will not incur any sin. Just do it as your duty. Don't do it for any result. Don't do it for winning. Don't do it for losing. Don't do it with any attachment to the result at all. Do your duty for the sake of duty. This is one very important principle of Karma Yoga. Duty for the sake of duty. Work for the sake of work. And it takes a certain spiritual maturity to come to that. That I work only for the sake of work. I don't work for the sake of result. Majority work only for the sake of result. So, if there is success to be attained, if there is some gain for me, if there is some pleasure that I get at the end of it, then the intensity of my effort will be much more. The interest, the enthusiasm is much more. But if I think that there is nothing much to gain here, maybe I will not get that kind of a recognition, then the enthusiasm, interest, etc. goes down. So the result is controlling my enthusiasm and interest, my involvement. Bhagavan says here that you don't fight for the sake of winning the war. You fight because it is your duty to protect dharma, full stop. Whether success comes or not, that is secondary. You fight with the best of your capacities because you have to fight, because this is your duty. Whatever is the result at the end of it, that is not your concern. This philosophy, see, the idea is not to not expect a result, but the idea is that the result should not govern my enthusiasm as far as my duty is concerned. Many people don't understand this philosophy. They would say that no, results only will govern. If I am going to be more intensely involved in something which I feel will get me success, what is wrong in that? And somewhere when I know that, okay, this is not going to give me that much of success or recognition or whatever it is, then I am not going to put that much of effort. So results govern our efforts. Here he says, no, don't do that. Because that increases the ego. From spiritual standpoint, that is what increases the ego. And when I act for the sake of result, that is a dependency. So I form the equation in my mind that I plus this job is equal to happiness. I plus this success is equal to happiness. So then I create those equations in my mind, create those dependencies on my mind. So I'm not being able to give my best for the work because I love the work, but I'm giving my best only because I want that result. The same work, if I don't have to get that result, I will not do properly, which is not fair in the context of duty. Now I have a duty towards my father. Whether the father is rich or poor, I have a duty. Whether the father leaves a certain amount in my name or doesn't leave, I still have a duty. Now if I think that by serving him, he will become happy and then he will leave certain amount in my name, so then I do it. Is that not selfish? Where the focus has gone away from duty and focus is now only on the result of that duty. So the intensity is changing. This is called utility value. In the world, a lot of times one focuses on utility value only. As long as someone is useful to me, I am very happy, I am very friendly, I relate very well. The moment that person is not useful anymore, one drops. In Bhajagovindam, that one shlok comes there. Yavad vitto parjana saktaha tavan nija parivaro raktaha. As long as you are capable of being productive and earning, so long people in the family will care for you. Paschat jivati jarjara dehe. As the time passes and the body becomes old, infirm, you are incapable of being productive. Vartam kopi na pruchhati gehe. The same family members will not even bother to ask, how are you? This is one stark fact of life, and this is the way it is. It need not be that everywhere it is like that, but this is one fact that it happens.
I have a question. Society judges. So when I'm at work, I need to produce results. When you don't produce results, because you're in a process of developing something, and I'm judged, it can lead to a loss of a job, which can lead to psychiatric illness. Now, I'm understanding what you're saying, it's the process, and fal ki asha chhod, it's the effort. But then my question is, how do I reconcile with the mental imbalance that occurs with society, which by and large is judgmental?
No, but focusing, the point is not to not focus on the result and not produce the result. Point being, when you enjoy the process and focus on the process, if the cause is taken care of, the effect has to come. My action is the cause. And expecting a result, I have to work, I have to give my best. There is no question about it. So when I do it, the result comes, very good. The result doesn't come, and suppose the person has landed up in a situation where loss of job has happened, one does not have to blame oneself or do anything because I have put in my best. Why should there be a pressure on my mind just because society judges? Society may think that I am unproductive. That is the problem of the society. How many times some great people have gone through that? Society, how many times they would have judged Steve Jobs? They would have judged Thomas Alva Edison. It is up to them how they take it, that they are in love with that job, so they keep doing it. Even they have gone through all those troubles. Steve Jobs was kicked out of his own company, which he himself formed. Gone. So the idea is that how I take it. Now, many people think that when we say don't focus on the result, meaning you will not get the result or you need not focus. The idea is not that. You may expect a result and work. But the point is that result should not be your deep driving motivation. Action should be the motivation. That this action itself I love. That has to be the motivation. Then I continue to work whether the result come or not. But the moment result becomes a motive, if I don't get the result, look at the very fact that I become disillusioned, I become dejected, I become disappointed, which is sapping and hitting at my own work enthusiasm, my work energy. So then for next time, I harbor a doubt. Last time I put in this much, I couldn't get. Now what will happen? I don't know. So now I started doubting. So now the result has started governing my confidence level, my capacities, my intensity of my work, all that. And if I get it, again there is a danger. I can become complacent the next time, or the success can get into my head. So either ways, the result creates a dependency on the result, creates the imbalance. So whether one works with the result in mind all the time, or one works keeping the result but focusing on the process, now that is the only choice. This will not say that you should not attain the result. In fact, if you see the philosophy, what did Bhagavan do? Krishna did everything to ensure that they win the war, right? Goal was kept in the mind. But there was no dependency on that goal, there was no attachment to that goal, and he put in his entire effort in the process. The result has to come. It may not come sometimes at the same time that I expect. Now that acceptance has to be there. It cannot happen at the time when I want it. As long as I have put my best and I can make the concerned people aware that this is the thing, and I have gone beyond my capacities also and still this has not come. So now the idea here is that when work for the sake of work is said, the entire focus comes back to work. Everything else which is associated with the result, with the result of the result, all that takes away a lot of energy. To remove that dissipation and focus completely on that work. An artist, when he is painting, is not bothered that this painting will go for this many lakhs or this many crores. He is focused on the job, he is focused on the joy, he is focused on creativity, the process he is enjoying, and he does it. And whenever you will see, whenever there is even a little bit of dependence on result which comes, performance gets affected very clearly. Same artist, when there is a certain need for, let us say, some money or some pressure is there and that person has to perform, that will eat away into the creativity. And hence this philosophy that yuddhaya yujyasva, work for the sake of work. Now you can apply this everywhere. Do we love people for the sake of people? Or do we love them because we want a specific response from them? Is love our own? Is the love a fulfillment to itself, or is the love fulfillment only when somebody reciprocates and in a particular way one reciprocates? So those are things which one has to ask. That can I work for the sake of work? Can I pray for the sake of praying? Can I love for the sake of loving? Can I do exercise for the sake of exercise? And you see the amount of mental energy conserved, amount of joy that comes through it. When everything else becomes the focus, then you see the dissipation in the mind. If I do exercise because I am supposed to lose weight, one will have to drag oneself through it somehow or the other. But I do it because I love it, because it's to be done, there is a duty. Don't we do that? Food. So many people love food. You just eat for the sake of eating. Does one ever say that, oh God, abhi wapas dokte ho gaya, abhi khana padega? No. One to plans 3 days before ki, after 3 days in the afternoon, what will I eat? Why? Because that is the thing. Eat for the sake of eating. So if one starts thinking, this may clash with our conditioning a little bit, but one has to think a little more. Vivekananda ji wrote this. When he gave his talks on Karma Yoga, he wrote this line. He said, I would go 100 miles on hands and knees to see the face of a man who can work for work's sake. Work but look not for motives, else you are a slave. That is what he wrote. But I am a slave to the result. If the result comes, I am thrilled. My intensity of effort goes up and down just because of the result. And that is what binds. Work never binds, please remember. Our dependency on the result and our strong sense of doership is what binds. That I am doing this work because this work, the result it will give me makes me happy. Now that is where the attachment is. So if I can work for the sake of work, maximum efficiency is possible only when work happens for the sake of work. When work does not happen for any secondary reason. When I love people for the sake of love, I don't love people because they are beneficial to me. I don't love people because I expect something from them. Then there is selfishness. And to the extent there is selfishness, there will be stress. To the extent there is selflessness, the person is free, very creative. So think more about this, work for the sake of work. Any question?
I'm not very clear in my thoughts, Swamiji, but what I'm trying to say is, suppose there's a person who knows that this is my Swadharma. But like you said, don't think of the results. But you know, like there are dependents on you and you need to perform it correctly so that you can, say for instance, earn money. Okay? You have dependents, you have to take care of them, right?
Mm.
So then what? This is against my Swadharma, but I know it will give me extra money, say for instance, to be able to take care of my children or whatever. But it is against my Swadharma. And if I do my Swadharma, I know that I will not maybe gain out of it. So then there is a big conflict as to what to do.
Agreed, the natural conflict is going to be there, and that is a choice that a person has to make at that point in time. There are many factors which one has to take into consideration. Right now, the conflict is only based on the concept of money right now. That here I may not get that much, here I will get more. Here I have to compromise Swadharma, here I have to
do it because...
Yeah. Now the point here is...
Because that's also dharma. I mean, you have to do it. Like if you have children dependent on you and you have to work to earn.
No. 1 minute. There, you can earn, that is fine. To provide only a certain type of standard, only a certain type of schooling, number one, that is a choice. If I choose to do that, then fine. That is again my choice. Second, I may do compromise with my Swadharma, but if from inside I am going to be unhappy, irritated, will that not reflect in my relationship with my children? Even if I say, it will not reflect. In the long run, is it a stopgap arrangement that for some years I am going to do this and then I am going to come back to my Swadharma? Or is it that I am going to do that for life? All those factors come into play. So if I am going to do it that way, if I am killing my own enthusiasm and interest slowly, eventually, when I am not able to give myself properly to the children, they themselves will get up and they will tell you that we didn't tell you to do this for me. So all these factors have to be considered. It is not possible to say that this is better or that is better. Because there are so many factors which will influence it. So I have to take into consideration all those factors. Fourth point is, what example have we set for the children? That money is more important than your Swadharma. So if there is a balance possible, that balance has to be done. That some part of it I do, which I have to do as my duty, because my Swadharma may not be that lucrative as far as money is concerned. Then I do that, and rest of the time I do this. If that balance is struck, very good. If that balance is not possible to be struck at the same time, then few years do it, few years get back to this. My father did that. Our financial condition of the family was not so great. His love was singing, but he could not pursue singing as a career. So he continued to do that as his hobby. He worked he did his graduation, so he did his accounts, and then he took up a business and all that he did. That was not his passion. The family came to a position where now things are settled. By the time he had lost his capacity to sing, lost the capacity to take up it as a career. So he started, what he did, he started whistling. And today he gives full-time performances on whistling. He can do bhajans on whistling, he can do patriotic songs on whistling, he can do film songs on whistling. Full 1.5 hours performance in whistling. So the example that he set for us. We lived in a very mediocre middle class, lower middle class family. That time the family was struggling, but he did not, let go of his passion. He continued in his spare time to do that, and he continued his business. And once the family came to a certain position, then he did this. So if that is possible, then one has to do that. Because it is not possible for somebody to be happy, to give happiness to others without we being happy. Sacrifice is one part, no doubt, and there is a joy in sacrifice also, and one has done that sacrifice. But it cannot be such a major sacrifice that person destroys one's own, enthusiasm of life from inside. Or the other way to do it is, whichever path is your path, whichever path you choose to earn, start loving it fully. Develop the passion for that. And convince yourself and train yourself to understand that this is what is my duty and I am doing this now. I need not follow that other path. There are different angles to it, whichever one takes. But one has to consider one's situation and do it. In this question of Arjun, there is no choice actually. In Arjun's case, if he runs away, it is absolutely damaging. But many times that is not our situation. In our situation, there may be other choices and balance and all that which is possible. So when that is possible, then one has to do that. In Arjun's case, it is not possible that they try balance. They tried all that before. That you give us just 5 houses, you give us just 1 house, all that. They tried to strike the balance, but that didn't happen. Now there is no other choice, they have to fight. So coming back to this, one is to know our Swadharma. See, this Swadharma and work for the sake of work, both are very interconnected. When I do my Swadharma, then work for the sake of work can be possible. If I am in Paradharma, I am in something which I am not made for, then work for the sake of work not possible. Then only the result will motivate. This philosophy of work for the sake of work is the basis of Karma Yoga and is the basis of spiritual unfoldment, because it reduces the ego. It removes the dependency on the result. And invariably, when you do that, you get the result. See, we keep the equation in the mind that if I am not anxious about the result, I will not get it. Your anxiety for the result doesn't get you the result. It only hampers the performance. What gets me the result is the intensity of my effort. And yes, there are other cosmic factors also. That is not in my control. So what is in my control I have to do. So how intense can I be in my efforts? That is what I have to do. That keep preparing myself for that. By removing all other distractions. And we do this. When we were children, we did this only. But then we got conditioned that this is a big bad world, you have to be a successful person, you have to achieve the result. If you don't achieve the result, you will not be respected by the society, and then how will you live, and all kinds of conditioning is put into our mind. Right from childhood, winning. One is only engineered to be thinking about that. You have to win, you have to be the best, you should do this, you should do that. There is nothing wrong with that, but the psychological dependency, once it comes on that, then the person will be what all people do. Just because they don't get a certain result, they destroy themselves. Just because a certain result did not come. Some person broke their heart. Finished, go and commit suicide. Why? Just because there is so much of dependency that this person's approval I need. I need this person in my life. Without this person, my life is nothing. And what kind of things we see also all around us happening. Destroying themselves. So the dependency on the result creates all that. As a child, one is so spontaneous, one is not even bothered about winning, losing, nothing, one is just playing. Slowly that winning, losing concept comes into the mind. So then from there onwards it starts. So how do we remove that dependency? By focusing on the work. You love that work once. We should teach our children to discover their Swadharma and to love that and do it passionately. Not judge them by their performance and their result. It's very limited thinking, that is. When somebody is judged that, in this particular subject this person got 90%. So that means that the person is very successful, that person is made for that particular field. And in some particular subject one doesn't get that much percentage. Does that mean that the person is not made for that field? We judge only by the examiner, by the questions and the way that child is answering. But there are many other factors associated with that. It is also possible that in the same subject the person loves that subject so much that one went beyond the book to study so much in detail, one did not bother about the so-called information that the books require you to mug up and then the teachers require to write. So just by the marks will be judged that this child is better in this. Ramanujam failed in mathematics, by the way. He dropped his study. But what he became? Einstein. He was a dropout, right? What he became? Because they loved the subject more than the result. That was the joy. In anybody's case, you will see those who work for the sake of work, play for the sake of play. Success comes to them because they are focused on the work. They are not dependent on the result. So he says, Tato yuddhaya yujyasva naivam papam avapsasi. Papa here is also agitation of the mind. Papa here does not mean only the merit and demerit according to the good and bad actions. But Papa here means that agitation of the mind. So when the focus is on the work, then the mind is not disturbed, mind is not agitated. That silent, quiet mind produces the best result, best actions. So now this is the philosophy of, the beginning of the philosophy of Karma Yoga. And Bhagavan, before he introduces Karma Yoga, he elaborately praises this Karma Yoga. He says that this, in Gita, this Karma Yoga is also called as Buddhi Yoga because you maintain the ideal in your mind. You maintain the concept that work for the sake of work. You don't work for any other reason. So that is called as Buddhi Yoga. And that Buddhi Yoga, he says that if you work that way, Karma Bandham Prahasyasi, 39th verse, he says that you will break asunder all the bondage of karma also. Because bondage of karma comes when I act for the sake of the result and I am dependent on that. So when I am the doer, I have to be the enjoyer. And some karma has not given the result, I am bound by that karma phala. But when I do work for the sake of work, whatever result comes, I am able to accept it. I am not bothered about that result. So karma bandhan, new karma, I do not create. So he says karma bandham prahasyasi, you will drop all the bondage of karma also just by focusing duty for the sake of duty. This concept of duty is a very powerful concept in our culture. For us, duty becomes boring, dragging, laborious, too difficult, I don't like to do it. But if I do the duty only for the sake of duty, if a student studies because it's a duty, if a person is able to do work because it's a duty, then the focus will be on the duty. That mind is a very disciplined mind. And that mind will be able to grow very deeply even in spiritual path. Because even in spiritual path, that dependence on the result will not bother a person. So if I am doing japa I do japa because it is my duty. In our culture, that is what it was. Sandhya Vandan and the Gayatri Mantra, everybody who is initiated into Janevu has to chant that Gayatri Mantra, do the Sandhya Vandan. Every day when one does it as a duty, it empowers the buddhi. It makes the person grow holistically. But if I start depending on the result, that मैं 10 दिन करके देखता हूँ, do I feel good? Did it produce any better result? Did my desires get fulfilled? If that has happened, then I will continue to do. Otherwise, I will not do. Then there is slackness in duty. Then I don't do what needs to be done. And when I do that, I hurt myself only, harm myself. So many people, 3-4 times they do, 3-4 days they will go for jogging and immediately measure in the weighing scale. वजन घटा क्यों नहीं? तो नहीं घटा तो क्या मतलब? Why should I do? So much of dependency is called phalasakti. Why don't you do the work for the sake of work? Results will take care of itself. You keep one result and put your intense effort in the work because that is to be done. Whoever focuses on duty, that person will get out of karma bandhan also, will live a very happy life, and that person will be successful also. Remove that equation from the mind that selfless work is equal to failure and selfish work is equal to success. That's a wrong equation. How the great masters work? They have no selfish motive, but they work. Shankaracharya never went to he didn't go to an IIM, he didn't go to an ISB, but he created the organizations which are running even today. Not one multinational is there which has survived more than 500 years, not one. And the institutions organized by Buddha, by Shankaracharya, by Jesus, they survive even today. Why? Because the basis is selfless work. Where did that passion to work come? Passion to work came not because of the result. Passion to work came because they loved that work. 8 years time Vivekananda established Ramakrishna Mission. Only 8 years. Today it is more than 100 years old. Doing so much of service to the humanity. This year we are celebrating 150th year of Vivekananda's birth. Even today millions are getting inspired just reading his books. Because he lived that work for the sake of work. He loved that work of reviving the Hindu culture. He loved that work of inspiring patriotism. Even today when you read literature of Vivekananda, you feel to be a proud Indian because how much of patriotism he invoked through his talks. So the equations in our mind we have to remove. Inspired work will give us success and selfless work is inspired work. So that's where we stop for today. Karma Yoga portion will come now. Take up tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti